On May 25th, 2008, an EF5 tornado carved a 43-mile-long path of destruction. That tornado hit the towns of Parkersburg and New Hartford, Iowa, claiming 9 lives. For survivors, city officials, forecasters, and storm chasers, this event changed their lives forever. This is Parkersburg in their own words.
It was a Memorial Day weekend, holiday weekend, so a lot of people were out and about, a lot of graduations.
Visiting my parents, visiting my brother.
We were camping about 30 minutes away because there was a bad storm coming and we didn't want to be in the camper.
It was pretty much partly sunny. It was the first really humid day of the late spring.
On our way towards home, and we got a call from, at that time it was a coworker of mine.
When the Storm Prediction Center issues a particularly dangerous watch for tornadoes, that gets your attention. You don't see too many of those. We haven't had too many since. So it's a heightened potential for a high-end tornado within a PDS box.
But you could tell that the instability certainly was getting pretty high during the day, and I started checking my phone, checking my radar apps.
The sky was really green, and it was just really an eerie green.
If we get something to form in that environment, we knew that it would be explosive.
I looked outside and I saw my neighbor standing in the middle of the road.
It was so low to the ground that really looked like more like a large cloud that was hanging towards the ground.
And I walked outside and asked them what they were doing.
Then the power went out, and then all of a sudden we started hearing what sounded like a freight train.
They said, look in the west. And I knew it. It was coming.
Oh, Father, I just pray that you would protect everyone in the path of that storm.
People would always tell me about the train sound, and I always thought people were crazy when they said that. I found out that day what the train sound was. It was just horrifying.
Once I heard the cracking and the sound of what was going on above us, that's when I started saying my prayers as loud as I could so the kids could concentrate on my voice, not what was about.
Protect next door, protect everyone.
My wife, who was an invalid, I had to get in my house to try to get her in the basement, which I didn't get to do because she couldn't navigate the steps, so I left her right there at the top of the stairs and put a cover over and stood behind her and held on to the railing things, and the storm came and straightened me out just like Superman. And
so you're flying.
About that time my hands let loose and I flew out of the house.
At the time it was over Parkersburg, we had no idea it was as bad as it was. We knew there had been a tornado spotted in the area. We knew it had a very strong signature on radar. In a pre-social media environment without instantaneous pictures we weren't getting, we really had no idea the magnitude.
Ben McMillan, who has always done a good job reporting to us, he was actually chasing the storm from the west, and as it moved into Parkersburg, and he stopped to start trying to help render aid and help out there.
The house is completely obliterated. Get to the left there. Yeah, just stop. We gotta go into rescue. Massive disruption, large gas leaks, flattened houses. I'm very serious. They need to get here and shut down this area. State Patrol, everybody.
It seemed like forever, but it was probably 2 minutes and it was over. We were in a split foyer, so our little entryway was still intact, but when we went up to the steps to go to our living room, it was all sky.
The storm quit then, and I was just out of the house and dumped me on right beside where my house was.
I mean, certainly it was coming out that there's a lot of damage in Parkersburg, and they needed a lot of help there. And
I remember the destruction just looking atomic. Just a complete leveling of parts of town, and just destruction that I don't think a human being can rationally wrap their head around. I mean, it's almost insane thinking to think of that type or that level of destruction, especially in regards to your hometown. A place that you've always known, a place you grew up in, a place that you saw grow and prosper. It was so profound. We knew like this was the day we were born for. Are we going to respond? Are we going to use our training and resources? Or are we going to fail? And my football coach told me a long time ago, you don't fail.
We got leaking gas. We got to get out of here.
I remember the smells after the storm and the natural gas, where the gas was coming out. I was very lucky we didn't have a bunch of explosions that day.
By the time we got the kids and everybody out to the curb, my mom was coming up, so I left my kids with my mom, and we went across the street looking for our neighbors because they were a little older than us, and we didn't know if they were home, if they made it to the basement.
severe weather wasn't over that day. We also had a tornado down by Osceola, and then we also had another area of storms come into central Iowa later that evening. So we didn't have time to sit there and dwell on it. We just kept doing our job and kept warnings going for storms downstream and further development.
When I initially realized we needed a morgue, and I knew for a fact my family was going to be put there, and my aunt was. She was placed in the morgue. I had no morgue training. You know, that's not something you learn at the law enforcement academy. But I knew what it needed to have. It needed to be a private space. It needed to be a secure space. It needed to be big enough for 80 to 120 bodies, which is what I estimated from my calculations that we would need. And to be honest with you, Terry, I wanted a place that was dignified so that if a family member ever wanted to see it, that they wouldn't be embarrassed about where somebody in Parkersburg chose to put their loved one's body.
There's kind of an underlying sense of grief. They know that 5 friends and family members and neighbors have lost their lives here.
South, the worst damage is directly below us.
Nobody could find us. Obviously, they were doing a lot of search and rescue in town, and they hadn't run into anybody yet in the neighborhood that knew where we were.
We just kind of on a whim decided to leave for the weekend, and like we told our in-laws, but my in-laws, but we didn't really tell our neighbors because they were doing their own thing anyway.
How quick do you get home? I mean, is it, you know, we're being told there's no reason to hurry, but yet the community that I was raised in has just been decimated by an EF5 tornado.
Very confused, disoriented, because you'd walk up the street. The street didn't have a whole lot of stuff on it. I mean, there was some debris, but you could walk up the street and you didn't know where you were. When we got up to the highway, you didn't really realize it was the highway.
My whole neighborhood there was nothing there.
And I don't want to call it confidence, because I don't know if I was necessarily confident as much as I was reassured, I was lifted up, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. It was strange. I needed an incident command. I knew that it had to be at the fire station in my head. When I got there, I didn't have maps. I didn't really have anything. I had a small, like 6x6 map in my squad car. That was the first map that I used, along with other folks, to send out first responders to the appropriate locations. And it became a machine. And that machine was pre-gassed, it was pre-oiled, and whether we knew we were ever going to need it or not, it had been practiced.
At that point, then, they had shut down the community and we couldn't get in. Then the attention kind of turned towards the kids and the fact that everything that was in the house is gone. We took enough clothes for 2 days. So,
all we have is what's with us in our suitcases.
We got into Mason City and we said, you know, we can't get in anyway, we might as well go to Walmart. And there was a lady right there when we walked in the door that was stocking shelves. And I just walked up to her and I said, normally when I come in at Walmart I can find what I need, but I said, let me explain the situation. I said, we're from Parkersburg. And she said, stop talking. And she walked away. She said, stay right here. She walked away and she came back with the store manager and a couple other people and said, what do you need?
I'm blessed to be here. My parents survived.
Yeah.
So finding that out several hours later and just being able to talk to my dad for the first time.
After we figured everybody was safe in our little neighborhood, we looked for our dog and couldn't find him. 2 days later, we got a phone call from the fire station, which was right up here, and said, we think your lab is up here.
Parkersburg and its people never envisioned that we would need other people, that we would need entities from all over the state of Iowa. I would say that if you said we were going to need all these entities before, we'd almost be embarrassed. You know, our pride would kick in and we'd say, no, we can do it ourselves. But this was such a destructive atomic storm that all of Iowa was needed to help us.
CBS 2's mission: to serve the people of Iowa, to serve Iowa communities across the corridor. When news breaks, when severe weather looms, our job is to serve you, to provide essential news from the Iowa Capitol, and connect you to Congress to bring the Iowa story home. We are proud Iowans awarded for journalistic excellence. CBS 2, proud to call Iowa home, proud to serve Iowans.
The town itself is under a curfew tonight. That curfew kicked into effect at 8 o'clock. We're in a subdivision just to the east of town, and take a look. These are two vehicles that were parked in a 3-car garage. This is pretty much all that's left of this house.
The difference between EF3 and EF5 damage, EF3, you see a structure and all the walls are bent over and everything's kind of in a pile. EF5, everything's swept and you don't see anything.
That morning when we showed up, like you couldn't even tell where your house was. The good thing through the night is they took plywood and spray painted the street signs on each corner, so you could at least navigate yourself around the debris.
That's all that was left when you got back here.
This is our master bedroom, closet, and bathroom.
Wow.
And then our laundry room was here because the laundry room wall was red.
And all the trees, I mean, every tree in town looks like it was gone. And sometimes even the bark. Was that off of it too? Yeah.
That was the same night, because that's my sister's car. We packed whatever was in our basement in her vehicle, because all my vehicles were blown apart. Our camper is nowhere to be found in that picture.
This is our daughter Jenna when she, this is probably, maybe we didn't allow her to come into town right away. So she came in, I think like the morning of, happened on a Sunday, like Tuesday afternoon. And so this was kind of when she at first was trying to figure out where her room was and trying to find all of her stuff.
This room right up here with the black and white, that was our bathroom, and our bathtub is no longer there. They always say the safest place to go in the bathtub, not in that tornado.
Especially on the second floor.
Yeah. And then there was a bedroom here that was completely gone. And then there was 2 bedrooms behind it, and then that's where the living room and kitchen were, that were completely gone.
Blue sky.
We knew it was above EF3.
Okay.
And, you know, I was with Carl Youngblood, the old science officer, and Brad Philbach, and, you know, pretty seasoned people who've seen several tornadoes, and our first inclination was, yeah, this is pretty high end. My personal thinking was I've never seen anything quite this bad, so we just kind of started on one end of town and worked our way through it.
The problem was all the debris was, everything was swept, but there was debris sitting everywhere because what was blocks away ended up, it wasn't completely swept away as you know you typically see, but it's just unbelievable.
I do remember like we had a deck that went, we didn't have the sunroom, so like you walked out onto our patio or a deck, and she went out there and she was digging around on the ground, and you know you don't really want a young child digging around and through debris, but she was trying to collect the coins that had, like somewhere her piggy bank had busted open, and so she was looking for the coins so that she could put it back in her new piggy bank that she knew she'd eventually get.
By the end of the day, we had narrowed down to EF4, EF5. The following day, we brought in more wind experts from other offices, and we gave it a second look. And then we announced the EF5 rating late that afternoon at a news conference up in Parkersburg.
We had certain things going for us that benefited us. We didn't lose our water tower. We didn't lose our water plant. We didn't lose a lift station. You know, whether we look at it at that context or not, people want to drink water and they want to be able to go to the bathroom. And you know, not losing those pieces of critical infrastructure were huge. So we're thankful. We didn't lose our downtown business district, which I'm thankful for.
The bad part of it was we lost 220 houses, and something like 8 or 9 businesses, but we almost got all the houses back, and besides all the businesses we lost, I think we gained about 5 more businesses.
I'd left my rings on my dresser, and I don't usually travel with them because I'm afraid I might leave them behind. And so I said to Dan, oh my gosh, I think like if there's nothing left or whatever we're going to stumble upon, I think my rings went out the door right along with everything else. We were lucky enough to have family and friends that were able to get into the community to help us. Several of those people put on like rubber gloves and sifted through the debris along with myself to like through insulation and glass, and you didn't really know what you were pulling up. And so they were able to find all 3 pieces of my ring.
I knew that my great-grandma's china had been in this china cabinet and it was in the living room. The back on the cabinet was dented. It had holes in it. And as I went to pick it up, I could see that there were things still in place and in full pieces underneath. So we were a little more careful and we lifted it all up. And unexplainably, things were kind of stacked on the floor, and this cabinet was laid down over top of it. So we actually did save that china, which was, looking at the rest of the house, you'd never believe that would happen.
With the wet and cold weather outside, so many of Parkersburg's residents and volunteers are in here in the American Legion building. And as you can see, many of them are eating lunch right now, which was donated and made for by volunteers.
While we do, claim to be strong, and we are strong, all of Iowa made this community what it is today.
Put you back together.
And put us back together. And for that, I can't say thank you enough. That's a blessing, and it didn't matter whether they were men, women,
Bless your heart.
children, elderly, Republican, Democrat. It didn't matter. Everybody gave us their best without any expectation of anything in return.
There's fighters here.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell them they can't do something because they like to prove you wrong. And people built back, as you can see when you drive around there's a few empty lots yet, but there's not very many.
Before the first raindrop falls, before the skies become deadly, one weather team puts you first. CBS 2 Weather First, your most accurate forecast. An expert storm tracking team give you the earliest warning possible to keep your family safe. Plus team coverage that takes you to the storm live. When severe weather strikes, turn to the team who puts you first. CBS 2 Weather First.
If I'm in a grocery store or at Walmart or wherever, I do look to see where I could go if there is a bad storm.
I'd always think, okay, get them over with, get back to the ball game or the car race. And boy, now I hear them way out, storm warnings in western Iowa, and it doesn't even affect us. And I get nervous, and I do, and I never used to.
And I wouldn't necessarily call us weather freaks, but we are
in tune.
Yes,
very in
and
tune.
very in tune, and like our kids, just like that's kind of how they're wired right now. Is like they always need to be mindful of the weather.
I've stated quite a few times that if you want to rob a bank in Parkersburg, just blow our tornado siren first. Because people are going to be taking shelter, they're going to be seeking the best avenue, they're going to be calling loved ones, they're going to be being safe or making themselves safe. I've asked a lot of people that are building a house or have moved here, what brings you to Parkersburg? I said, we just want to be a part of something. We want to be a part of this, and Parkersburg has name recognition, and I tell them, well, you came to the right town if you want to be a part of something, because you would think that after a while, leaders and people in the community would say, all right, good enough, let's take a sabbatical. But this year, some leaders in the community wanted to build a sports complex, and they didn't just say we want to build a little one. They said we want to build a $2.3 million one.
I would never leave this community. I was born and raised here. My husband was born and raised here. My husband has his business here.
Right.
So our families are all right here.
Well, I was forced to because I married somebody that was a native of Parkersburg. I don't know if you want that on camera.
That's the way to start, right there. Yeah.
We lived in Cedar Falls the first 5 years that we were married. And not that that isn't a great community too, but we knew we wanted to come back to a small town. And gosh darn it, we weren't going to let something like this chase us away.
I grew up Parkersburg, and we certainly weren't going to let, the roots are deep, deeper than an EF5 tornado can take care of.